my name's Justin. Welcome to my channel. I bought a vintage 335 for less than $1,800. I'm going to show you how you can look for something similar too. But first, I want to say welcome. If you're new here, I would ask you to please subscribe. The entire reason that this channel exists is to help people become better musicians on the guitar. There are so many guitar channels that teach you licks, teach you scales, teach you the cage system. All that's fantastic. Why would I offer the same thing when it's everywhere? So my whole angle is to help people be better musicians, and that means thinking creatively when you play, thinking melodically, not just playing chords and then waiting to solo, but coming up with a cool guitar part, something that has a hook that draws you in. I want to show people how to make others sound better just by virtue of the fact that you're in the band with them, supporting whatever they're doing. I've built a career out of that, and I feel like it's an underrepresented area in YouTube, like how to actually move toward starting a band, getting hired, winning an audition, playing on someone's record, stuff like that, right? So let's talk about this old 335. This is a vintage 335. I know that when you hear vintage 335, you think 58 to 64, or maybe even late 60s. You know, you don't think early 80s, but this guitar is 41 years old. And I've helped a lot of people, well, a lot. I've helped probably 4 or 5 people find early 80s 335s. And what I found is that they're all really consistent. They all actually sound really good. I played some 335s that were just total dogs. Like they just sound thin and wimpy and bright, and they don't have that sort of smoky, airy, mid-range thing that they're known for, you know. This guitar was on eBay several years ago, and it had a dead neck pickup, and the wiring harness was shot. And so the guy listed it with no reserve, and he was in Knoxville, which is only 2.5-ish hours from Nashville. Like I said, he had it at no reserve. So I sent him a message through eBay, which you're not supposed to do this, but I offered cash. I will bring you cash and pick up the guitar. If you end the auction, I'll bring you $1,800. That's what I offered him. And he writes back and he's like, no, I'm going to let it run. I think it's going to go for a lot more than that. And I said, okay, that's fine. You know, I just feel with the issues that it has, you're probably not going to get as close to what you see others listed for as you might think. And didn't hear back from him, so I ended up bidding on the guitar. And I ended up winning it for less than $1,800. I think it was $1,780 or something that I paid for it. Well, I sent him another message through the system, and I was like, hey, I still don't want this guitar to be shipped. Can I come pick it up from you? And I don't have to come to your house. Like, give me a location. You don't have to ship it. And he agreed to that. Because he let the auction run, he still had to pay eBay and PayPal fees, right? That stinks. So I got it from him, and he was like, man, I really thought it was going to go for more. And I said, you know, it's just, I've got a lot to do to it before I even start playing it. So I hope it's a good guitar, but I got to get the pickup fixed. I got to put basically an entirely new wiring harness in it with the pots and everything. That was fun, you know, pulling everything, using threads through the pickup cavities, out all the holes, and then pulling everything into place together. I only want to do that once ever. So what I ended up doing was putting pickup wire extensions to the pots so that if I ever wanted to switch pickups, the ends of where my pickups are soldered on are right here at the control cavity. So anyway, let's hear how this thing sounds. And I've got my speakers muted, so I'm going to put my cans on and just play a little bit. So that's all bridge pickup, you know. We'll go to the neck here. Here's the middle. I'm hearing that I have a little bit of reverb on. That's the Boss Fender 63 spring pedal. If you keep all the knobs around 9 o'clock, it sounds like an old Fender spring tank, like the old 6G15, something like that, the Fender spring tank. And then there's a little slapback on too from my timeline. So I've got a track here. Actually, this is an old track. I played some rhythm guitars on a song for Brett Papa for him to use as backing stuff for all his students, you know, to practice the stuff that he was teaching them on. I'm just going to play over it. I'm going to put a little longer reverb on it, or sorry, a longer delay. This is the timeline again. And I'm going to goose it a little bit, or a lot. Okay, enough of that nonsense. Let's turn these pedals back off. So, what I ended up doing with the guitar is I had the neck pickup rewound by Lindy Fralin, and it came back sounding fantastic. I bought a wiring harness from some company. It was like a something doctor. He made, you could buy sets of 500K pots from him, or pre-wired sets of pots to take your average off-the-wall Gibson, which probably had 300K pots in it or something, and put real vintage spec guts in it, basically. And they would come with caps and whatever. I feel like his logo had like he was in like a doctor suit or something. It was a drawing of a guy. I'm blanking on the name. It wasn't RS Guitar Works. There was another company, another like one-man shop that was doing this sort of stuff. And so I bought a pre-wired harness, and then I like used thread from the pickup cavity out all of the holes to pull everything into place. And, you know, I even put a Bigsby on it for a while. So it's got the old snake bite, you know. Took that off. And the bridge is a Faber, which locks to the posts. You know, these originally came with Nashville bridges, and those Nashville bridges, they look like the old ABRs, but they're like bigger this way. That was to, you know, make up for the fact that maybe whoever was building the guitar didn't put the studs in the right place. So you had longer travel for your saddles to be able to get the guitar to intonate. I've had some old Gibsons, like early 60s SGs, where the bridge is just a little too close to the bridge pickup. And I can't get the G string to properly intonate because I can't get the saddle back far enough. That's frustrating on a guitar that you spent 10 grand on or whatever. So, at the time that I found this for 1,800 bucks, these Tim Shaw era 335s were going for around 3,500 to 4 grand. I looked on Reverb and they're up from there, right? They're anywhere from 4 to 6, depending on what the deal is. You might find one cheaper with a headstock repair. Well, I guess that's what I'm kind of saying that you could do. You could find an old one that has a few issues. If it's going to be something that you find online that you haven't played first, the early 80s custom shop guitars under Tim Shaw are really solid guitars. You know, he took Gibson back to the way they were building things in the late 50s. You know, it seemed like from the mid-60s through the 70s, Gibson was just chasing Fender in terms of going to skinny necks. They used maple in the neck. They would use pancake bodies on the Les Pauls, and everything got real bright and snappy, and it was like they were trying to sound like Telecasters. The way I understand it, Tim kind of reoriented them toward the 50s era, right? The golden era. By that time, people had realized, like, those were actually really great guitars, despite the fact that nobody wanted to buy the Les Pauls when they first came out. They weren't exactly marketing successes or sales successes, I should say. People started to realize over the years that, hey, those are really great. Those were made well, and there's some really sweet guitars from that era. There are some dogs too. And generally speaking, I think that's true of just about every era of every kind of guitar. There's great ones and there's not great ones. I've helped 4 or 5 find an early 80s Tim Shaw 335. I've probably played 8 of them, and they've been really consistent. I mean, seriously, they sound great. I've used this on everything for a long time, you know. If I were to give you advice on how to find your own vintage 335 for a good deal, I would say stick with the early 80s. Stick with the Tim Shaw stuff. Look for one that's got an issue or two, you know. Mine had 2 issues, completely dead neck pickup and a totally shot wiring harness. And that's okay if the wiring harness is shot, because they used total junk pots in that era. I want to say that the volumes are 300K and the tone pots are 100K. It might be the reverse of that, or they might all be 300s. Either way, it's like having everything rolled down on a 500K pot, you know, or at least halfway. So I got into this guitar for, like I said, 1,700 bucks. I have a set of Tom Holmes pickups in it, which were not cheap, you know. And I have the wiring harness and the Faber bridge, and all in, I'm at around 2,600 bucks total for a vintage 335. And I have the original case too, and it's terrible. I never use it. I bought a different hard case to carry this around in, and a mono bag. That probably seems crazy to some of y'all that I would carry a 41-year-old 335 in a mono bag, but here we are. Have a good day. If you find something old and cool for a good deal, let me know. I'd love to hear about it. I'll see y'all later. Bye.